There's a new school of actors there. That's what I call the De Niro school. They don't want to have anything to do with the press.
I know.
There were films from, I think he's very insecure about doing those things, you know.
Well,
because, for instance, Ed normally refuses to do anything. And it's only for Alamo that he's really wanted to get involved. And originally it was only meant to be Amy and myself, and then he decided to join. And but he's wonderful. I've seen him do
he does excellent
live.
interviews.
We did,
yeah.
you know, several things live in Boston, for instance, and he was very articulate.
Mm-hmm.
And
oh yes.
very good.
And
let's say quite well paid for what we're doing, and I think it's part of our job. I mean, it's just too easy to say, well, but some actors are difficult from A to Z. I mean, they're difficult on the set, they're difficult before, during, after. It's just...
anybody you care to mention?
Oh, well. You know, we were hit by Burt Lancaster for Atlantic City. He refused to do anything, which was, I got me very angry, because also for him it was a great comeback. And he did not one interview. And that was very unfair, and
yeah, makes you not
then
want
he
to.
would, you know, his agent kept sending me scripts because they wanted to work with me again. I said, well, I'm not sure.
Yeah, see?
I like teamwork, you know.
Exactly. Okay. Well, Louis, it is so nice to have a chance to talk with you, because as one who's been covering films for a long time, I have covered many of your films, enjoyed them tremendously. But, you know, somebody said something to me the other day, and I thought that's a good question to ask Louis Malle, because someone was saying, well, a Louis Malle film, you know, it's a Louis Malle film. And I said, what do you mean a Louis Malle film? So they articulated a few things, but I thought, now, I wonder if Louis Malle knows what a Louis Malle film is.
Well, I think I can answer that, yes. You know, some filmmakers tend to almost always do the same film, you know, over and over again. And I really don't blame them from that. In a certain way, I envy them, because it's maybe easier or more comfortable. I am the victim of my restless curiosity. Since I've started making film, which goes back to when I was 24 years old, so it's a little while ago, I cannot repeat myself. I just would get very bored if I was going to, you know, do a picture and then, oh, well, yes, this has been successful, let's do another one in the same vein. I want to do something drastically different. And I'm always following my curiosity. And it takes me to sort of try to tackle different subjects, different themes, you know, different environments. And I'm always sort of, you know, following. I have one real reason, is because each one of my films, for me at least, it represents sometimes between up to 2 years of my life. So you don't want to do something that, you know, you're not going to keep really, something that's going to, it has to sustain your curiosity. Now, when people ask me what is there in common between all your films, my answer is, it's me. I mean, it's just my curiosity and a certain sort of a certain attitude that I have to refuse to pass easy judgments, to refuse to take anything for granted, to refuse to come up with easy answers, you know, and I like pictures who sort of more than giving answers, to pictures which ask questions, and so that's what all my work has in common. And also, I suppose, an interest in people that are sort of, you know, marginal or not completely in the mainstream, or people who have problems with their you know, their environment, or people who don't quite make it, or dreamers and losers and people with problems. In the case of Alamo Bay, I got interested as long as 5 years ago when I started reading about those incidents, not only in Texas, but also in Louisiana and Florida and California, between Vietnamese refugees and local fishermen in these little towns, because I knew right away that it was something for me that I would find interesting, because it was not easy to say, well, this is just another classic case of intolerance and racism. It's always much more complicated when you try to dealing with the truth, when you try to deal with the reality of life. There's no such thing as, good guys and bad guys, and this was exactly what it was. When I went down to this little town on the coast of Texas, and I started talking to everybody, I realized very quickly that it would be really important to try to convey everybody's point of view, even if in the end you have to, I was not trying to justify the violence or the injustice or breaking the law, but I was trying to understand why and how these people, these local fishermen, out of frustration and their anger at being sort of left behind, and they just cannot make it, and they threaten economically, and they see these complete strangers invading their territory, and it's a sort of it's almost part of human nature that you would react. And I kept asking myself, I'm very different from these people, obviously, but I spent so much time down there. I ended up spending 6 months in South Texas, and I kept asking myself, what would I do if I was somebody like Shang, the character Ed Harris plays? And that's really what triggered my interest and my decision to make the film.
You ready? Okay. Louis, the film is getting mixed reviews, and other films of yours have had mixed reviews. But I'm wondering, do you resent some of the critics, because some of them have really been almost vitriolic and vicious,
Well, to start with, I'll say that I would get very nervous, and frankly, it's never happened to me. Even some of my films that are now considered classics, I never got unanimous reviews, and I would worry if I would get nothing but raves, because it would seem to me that I've done something slightly innocuous. I don't like that. It's what I'm trying to do always in my work is to come up with films that tend to disturb, sometimes provoke, and they're not necessarily just pure entertainment. And so I'm quite prepared for all kinds of reaction, and especially for Alamo Bay, I knew from the start that this was one which would get sort of extreme reaction. I must say I was surprised by some of it seems like the Alamo Bay triggers sort of very intimate reactions from viewers. And I've had extraordinary reactions, some of them, in the press, and some of them, people who called me or wrote me when they saw the picture. And on the other hand, I've seen some of the people being sort of personally offended or aggressed or felt very, and they reacted by, almost getting out of their way. I don't mind being criticized, but sometimes I was surprised how strong the reaction was. And in a way, first you're surprised, and of course you would prefer to get, you like to have as good reviews as you can get, because this is a picture that needs the audience to be encouraged to go see it. So it's a little negative, but at the same time, I couldn't help thinking that this is in a way a sort of it means this picture, Alamo Bay, is doing something very deep to the people watching it, and I never really, one of my best pictures, I mean, that's what everybody says, which is called Lacombe Lucien, and had some similarities. It was one of my last French films before I came over to this country to work here, quite a few years ago now, and I got really the meanest reviews in the French press, because they felt the subject, which was about a young man who became a a collaborator with the Germans during the World War II and worked for the Gestapo. But I was trying to portray him a little bit like what I'm doing with the character, the Ed Harris character in Alamo Bay. In that sense, I found some similarities because if you look at him from outside, he could be this sort of a straight villain, and you would, the kind of character you love to hate. But at the same time, I was trying to understand or to examine his behavior, and it got me an incredible amount of, aggressive reaction. Now, La Combe-Lucien in France is considered, it was voted the best film of the 70s at the end of the decade and things like that. So I'm quite prepared for that. I just hope that people will go and see it and judge for themselves, because I think I'm very proud of Alamo Bay, and I think it's going to stay as one of my important pictures, and I'm very happy I made it. I'm especially happy that I had a chance to work here in Texas. I really always wanted to spend time in there, You know that Texas is twice as big as my own country, France. So it's hard to talk about Texas. There's so many different Texas, but I felt that it was a great opportunity for me to deal with, especially in this coastal town. It's almost like a sort of a subculture that's very few Americans know about, and sometimes people in New York or Los Angeles would tell you, oh, well, this is a little too far. It seems so exotic to them. I feel sometimes that I know better. We're not going to be crazy. We're not really sort of a show business people in the sense that important or more important. We've been so happy together that if it happens, it happens, but we're not obsessed with it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. One last question.
You might want to redo the last question. Stop during the last.
Okay. Well, I see a place where we could make the edit, though. I think we're okay on that. When you were in South Texas making Alamo Bay, did you have any bad experiences with the local people who didn't want it made?
Well, there were a couple of towns where it would have been difficult to shoot there, because there were some of these towns where some of the really most violent incidents took place. We picked a town where things had been pretty, not as, things happened everywhere at some point, especially in '81. But we choose a town called Rockport and Fulton Beach, especially, where the mayor, for instance, was a man who stood up and was threatened by the KKK because he refused to let them come and demonstrate, and he was himself employing Vietnamese, and so it was. We were in a sort of a favorable environment. Some of the local fishermen, but we gave them the scripts. They were participants in the movie. They played small parts or were extras, and we had lots of discussions. We had more problems with the Vietnamese, actually, because the Vietnamese at the beginning, they were pretty negative. They felt, things are getting better now, things are improving, and we don't want to wake up the beast. We had to talk to their leaders. We had to spend time with them to convince them to come and work with us, because, of course, all the Vietnamese in this film are, except two, they all recruited locally. They all actually fishermen. They're playing their own parts. And, but in general, we were also a little worried that we might get in trouble with the KKK. We got lots of phone calls. We got, but finally, there seems to be the tradition of hospitality in Texas is so strong that it seems like, because we were strangers and we all became a little Texan in a way. We all sort of, I spent like 6 months down there, so it was actually quite easy, and people were wonderful, frankly. even if, you know, they dissented about certain things, and but basically we had a chance to show the finished picture to a couple of fishermen who'd, you know, been part of the shooting, and they looked at the picture and they said, well, it's pretty accurate. So we basically, it was a great experience. For me, it was one of my best experiences working on location in all my career.
Well, Mr. Louis Malle, we appreciate your giving your time today, and we hope you'll come back to Texas and make another film, maybe in the Dallas-Fort Worth area.
I would love to.
Okay. Thank you very much.